We are here at the NFL owners meetings, orange and blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew, Mason. Mace, it's good to be in Florida.
It's good to be down here where the sun warms the sky. You see the palm trees behind us. All the league bigwigs are gathered down here in Orlando. That's general managers, head coaches, owners, etc. We're going to hear from Sean Payton on Monday morning. We're also expecting to hear from George Payton and Greg Penner, among others. But Sean Payton is apparently up first. He's talking at 5:45 Mountain Time on Monday morning, and I don't think it's going to take long for the subject of quarterbacks to come up.
Yes, the quarterback talk is all the rage for Broncos country, and with good reason. They don't have one, except they have Jarret Stidham. But how's it going to differ from what Sean Payton used to think of Jarret Stidham to what he thinks of Jarret Stidham now? I think that's our largest discussion for today's show.
Yeah, it's funny you say all the rage, because I also think there's a little bit of rage out there in Broncos country. Maybe it's a combination of rage and apathy, rageathy, perhaps. Or appa-rage.
Apogee? That's
Yeah,
something? I don't
something
know.
like that.
Yeah.
But we're sitting here headed towards the end of March, and as of this moment, Jarret Stidham is the Broncos' #1 quarterback. And let's start first with the notion that got tossed out there by Ian Rapoport of NFL Network talking with Daniel Jeremiah about, he was asked about the possibility of trading up for a quarterback, whether the Raiders or Broncos were more likely. Ian said it was the Raiders and explained that the Broncos might be satisfied with Jarret Stidham as QB1.
Let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
Sean Payton has won with a lot of quarterbacks who are not as good as Jarret Stidham. You know, I do think they'll add a quarterback, but I don't know that the urgency is there because he's so good that I think they say, you know what, we can take some raw materials and he will get that person to perform.
Well, first of all, I mean, a lot of quarterbacks, Sean Payton's won with a lot of quarterbacks who aren't as good as Jarret Stidham.
Right.
You can go on denversports.com and you can see all the quarterbacks who started for Sean Payton, including those who started for him when he was an assistant with the Philadelphia Eagles, the New York Giants, and the Dallas Cowboys, the latter two of which he served as coordinator for in his time. When you look at winning records, if you're going by the QB wins, you're saying, okay, which teams had winning records with these quarterbacks as starter? It would be Drew Henson and Quincy Carter, 10-6 with Quincy Carter back in 2003, the Dallas Cowboys. I think those are the only two that you're talking about that are quote-unquote winners that are less than Jarret Stidham. I mean, I think Kerry Collins, better quarterback than Jarret Stidham.
For sure.
Teddy Bridgewater, better quarterback than Jarret Stidham. Jameis Winston, better quarterback than Jarret Stidham. And if you say Trevor Siemian, believe it or not, the Saints went 0-4 when Trevor Siemian started.
Yeah.
The other name that would come into play is Taysom Hill, but I think Taysom's kind of in another category onto himself.
Yeah.
Like he's his own entity.
Right.
Really.
When I looked at your list at denversports.com, the quarterback that I thought, who's most like Stidham, honestly, it is Trevor. It's Trevor Siemian. But
Didn't
as
go
you
well.
mentioned, it was 0-4. That's not great, Bob. It's the first time I've said that on this trip. Let the record show.
Well, you've only been on this trip, if you count your flight, for what, like 6.5 hours?
6 hours, something like that.
Yeah. There's a ways to go here.
We still got time.
The trip is still young.
It is.
And there'll be some cold pops.
There will be some cold pops flowing here in Orlando, but the thing is, like, okay, he can win, Mace, but can you win championships, right? What was Sean Payton like with Drew Brees? Excellent. What if he found a Brees-like prospect in the draft?
It'd be a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he believes Jarret Stidham can be like that?
Is Jarret Stidham a game changer?
Not from what I've seen just yet. And look, you have to kind of look at the arc of Jarret Stidham and look at quarterbacks who are like him. He's on his third team. He's headed into his sixth year. In those first 5 years, he only started 4 games. His best start so far was that first game for the Raiders against the 49ers. And actually, in both of his starting stints, his better start was the first of the two,
Yes.
which tells you there was adjustment to what Jarret Stidham showed on the film.
They got film on him.
Yeah. The likelihood of Jarret Stidham becoming something more than a journeyman quarterback at this stage is pretty low. You're saying, okay, were those other teams wrong? Why couldn't he work his way into starting with the Patriots? I mean, after his first year, New England moved on from Tom Brady, but looked at Jarret Stidham and said, we'd rather go with Cam Newton, who's got multiple injuries and is basically at the end of his career.
Right.
We'd rather go with Cam Newton than Jarret Stidham. And then a year later, they bring in Mac Jones. You know, they end up going with Mac Jones as a first-round pick. The Raiders took a look at Jarret Stidham, and they could have brought him back last year. They didn't really fight to bring him back. And the other thing on the Broncos is, I mean, were they bidding against themselves when they gave him that 2-year, $10 million contract? Because we see some of these other contracts for, I would argue, better quarterbacks. Jameis Winston is making more on a per-year basis.
Yes.
And he's a more accomplished, better quarterback than Jarret Stidham. Baker Mayfield last year when Tampa Bay brought him in got less on a per-year basis, at least for that first year of his contract with Tampa Bay, than Jarret Stidham did. That was part of why it was curious. There's a belief in Jarret Stidham, and it seems like for Sean Payton, the belief goes back to when he was in college, but at the same time, sometimes you see enough as a pro to where the belief has to be let go of. Like, I'll give you an example. You and I love Matt Pert.
Yes.
In 2020, coming out of UConn.
Saw him at the Senior Bowl.
Thought, wow, great pickup for the Giants in round 3.
Physical tools.
Smart, upside, athletic. Checked a lot of the boxes to where if you got him for a couple of years, he could become a really good tackle. That hasn't happened. Probably his future is as a swing at best. So you and I have to let go of our views of what Matt Pert was coming into the league and focus on what he's become and what he is and what he's shown to be. With Jarret Stidham, what he's shown, and I don't just base this on the games, it's also you and I watching him in practice last summer.
Yes.
A quarterback who isn't as accurate as he needs to be. Like, watch the Raider game, for example, in Week 18, and he misses some makeable throws. I question this going all the way back to the Auburn years for Jarret Stidham. Not an exceptionally good feel for the pass rush.
Right.
So, color me skeptical. If Jarret Stidham is the best option for the Broncos this year, I could be bolder than this, but I'm just going to be euphemistic and be kind and say I don't think it's going to go well.
No, it's not a great plan. Yes, Sean Payton's a great coach, but it's not a great plan with Stidham. You mentioned the Auburn days. Well, last year at the owners' meeting, Sean Payton said he really liked him coming out of college, and let's watch that beautiful bean footage.
I think he's young, but I think he's someone that we had a good grade on coming out. We like the player. I think he played well in the two starts he had this year. If you study closely the San Francisco game, he's smart at the line of scrimmage. And so there were a couple of directions really with that position. There were a handful of number twos that either I'd worked with or we felt comfortable with. But in this case, I think it's a number two that his arrow is moving in a direction where, we feel like he can become an NFL starter in our league. Now, so the evaluation was pretty crystal clear for all of us. I think he's someone that's going to be great in the room. He's smart. And so quietly, that was an important sign for us.
Well, Cecil, you hear those words. What's the first thing that goes through your mind when you hear Sean Payton share that as he did last year at this time at the league meetings in Phoenix?
First off, you said shared, so shared moment. But what I think is frozen. Let it go. Let it go. That was then, this is now, man. Like, we like a lot of guys when they come out of college, but once they get a certain number of reps, and I think we've seen enough of Jarret Stidham in the pros to kind of know what you're going to get. There's a line, a Jarret Stidham line. He's not really going to go much above that, no matter how much time you give him as a starter.
Yeah. The thing is, even though he hasn't had the starts, when you're in camps over and over, teams look at you and you have chances. And so far, he has not shown enough to break through to where, until this point, he's viewed as a viable starter. And it may not even be It may not work out to where a month from now we're talking about Jarret Stidham being the QB1 for more than just an interregnum, right? If you do get Bo Nix, or if you do make an audacious trade up and try to get Drake Maye or J.J. McCarthy, then the clock begins ticking on Jarret Stidham, much the same way you might argue that the clock began ticking on Vance Joseph the moment that Jimmy Leonard walked in the door, as we talked about.
And how the clock started ticking on George Payton when Cody Rager was hired by this team. My hair's a little wild, but I'll say this, like a year ago, you and I were like, okay, Jarret Stidham, it's interesting. You know, is there some upside there? Well, a year later, it'll be interesting on Monday to find out if Sean Payton still believes, like he did a year ago, in the potential upside of Jarret Stidham.
What I said is I think there's upside in this player. So here we are, you know, we have a young player. I think there's certain players that we saw in free agency, you know, there are two. And can they come in and play and start? Yes. I think you get that with Jarret, but I also think you get a player who's still ascending. I mean, if you watch the 49er game, have you seen that game? That's impressive against a good defense. And so he was a priority for us, like quietly. And fortunately, it worked out where we were able to get him.
Now, that response at this time last year, that was to a question that I asked, and I actually then had a follow-up for Sean Payton asking about, okay, sort of kind of playing along, right? And so I asked him about maybe our quarterbacks being jettisoned too soon in their development, that maybe they can evolve into something. And it was very interesting when I mentioned that, when I said that, he interjected that I don't think he was jettisoned by Las Vegas. Okay, fine. Las Vegas did not make a huge attempt to re-sign Jarret Stidham. That was the thing. Like, if they really wanted him back, especially moving on from Derek Carr, they could have. Las Vegas decided they would rather have Jimmy Garoppolo than Jarret Stidham.
And Aiden O'Connell.
Yes. And they got O'Connell a month later, so they didn't know at the time they were going to get O'Connell. But at that moment, in March of 2023, they decided they would rather have Jimmy Garoppolo than turn the page with Jarret Stidham and see where it went. And it did not go very well for Jimmy Garoppolo. I guess what I'm saying is, if Jarret Stidham, if he is the person in whom the Broncos want to put at least most of the eggs in the basket, because to go back to Ian Rapoport's clip earlier, we all agree there's another quarterback coming in because they only have two. You're going to have at least three in that room by the time you get to actual on-field practice in May. So there's going to be another quarterback. It's what type of other quarterback that is. Is it a first rounder where you're saying, okay, this is the plan to develop, this is our primary path? Or is it a Michael Pratt in round 3 or round 4 where, okay, maybe he develops, but right now the primary plan is Jarret Stidham and see where he goes? I don't know that that's going to be very sellable to a lot of Broncos fans.
Not sellable at all. The Broncos fans who are now paying more for their season tickets. And plus this, Mace.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
We've never brought this up before, but in this way, because we have talked about Jimmy Garoppolo, but the suspension. Would the Broncos have essentially made the same decision the Raiders made last year had it not been for the 2-game suspension that Garoppolo must go through in the first 2 games of this year?
Yeah, very interesting also because with the Rams, we presumed that they were happy with Stetson Bennett's development as a potential backup. Of course, they took him on day 3 of last year's draft, the quarterback out of the University of Georgia. Evidently not, because they are bringing Garoppolo to be the number 2 behind Matthew Stafford. Presumably, they believe he can keep things afloat if the inevitable injury strikes Matthew Stafford. We saw last year, it did cost him multiple games, and those multiple games lost almost cost the Rams the playoffs, which is why you're looking at Garoppolo. I think what they're hoping is, all right, if Matthew Stafford gets hurt, we hope it's not weeks 1 or 2 when Jimmy Garoppolo is unavailable to us. But that, again, this is what it's come to. I guess I'm having an existential moment here thinking about the quarterbacks, but I mean, we are debating the validity, veracity, whatever you want to say, of Jarret Stidham being the Broncos' number 1 quarterback. And again, it's possible that a month from now, or a little over a month from now, that we're having a different discussion. But right now, and we'll probably have a little illumination on this from Sean Payton tomorrow, or maybe we'll have subterfuge. Maybe this is going to be all about putting up a front to keep people off the scent.
Yeah.
It's kind of what you're hoping at this point, right? Like, I mean, if we're going to live in dreamland for a moment, that maybe their hopes are, let's move up to get Drake Maye, who you and I have discussed does need some refinement, but has a mix of tools that's actually perfect for not just doing what Sean Payton wants, but going beyond, beyond the Valley of the Dolls, beyond the Sean Payton offense with Drew Brees, because he's got the 35-yard deep out tool in his belt.
Right. And we've said it before, the best quarterback not named Caleb Williams for Sean Payton is Drake Maye.
It's not Jaden Daniels.
Who may be the option for the Broncos now. Will we hear about a deal, or will we get more spin here in Orlando? I'm probably expecting the latter, Mace.
I'm expecting the latter as well. I think this is about not revealing all the cards that you have. But also, I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Paper 30 years ago. There was a line in there about how when you publish, you only have to be right for a day. You can put the correction, or you can put the story that's got new information out there tomorrow. But they keep saying, we only have to be right for a day. Glenn Close's character plays the editor of the paper, or the publisher of the paper, I should say. So basically, if Sean Payton gets up there tomorrow at the coach's breakfast, I believe he will, and he talks about the validity of Jarret Stidham as a Broncos quarterback, I know it's going to give some people out there, the shakes a little bit, but
right.
It's only about being right and correct today. What they have in that building is Jarret Stidham and Ben DiNucci, and that's it.
He's playing the game, everybody. He's playing the game.
But there will be someone in there. I still hope it's a high draft pick.
I hope they move up for a quarterback. I hope a deal comes together this week.
Yeah.
Don't know if we'll get an announcement, but
some people aren't going to like us saying that they want us that we want them to move up.
Yeah. Stay put, stink for Shedeur. It's not going to happen. Sean Payton is too good.
Also, can I say this about Shedeur? I'm going to say the thing.
Mm.
I'd like to see him play for a coach who's not his father.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Deion Sanders was his OC in high school, his head coach at Jackson State, his head coach at CU. Color me skeptical, and this is not going to be very popular among all of you in Buffs Nation. I'm sorry.
Bad day for Buffs Nation men's basketball today.
Yeah, was going well in women's basketball last I checked, which gives them the right to get their butt kicked by Caitlin Clark, but potentially that's another thing entirely. Color me skeptical about a player whose success is coming with his father as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I said the thing. That'll tick people off.
Well, he's got elite tools. We'll see what he does this year, but you're not in position for number 1 overall. You don't want to trade up this year. Well, you're going to have to trade up next year, because Sean Payton, even with Jarret Stidham, is going to win 5-6 games.
Picking 5th or 6th or somewhere
You
around there.
still have to move up for Shedeur.
And you have to sacrifice a fair amount to do it. I mean, from 5 or 6 to 1, you'd have to give up something. I'll also say this: I don't like the idea of him playing for Pat Shurmur on that staff.
Pat Shurmur is not the right fit. I'll try to be nice, Mace. It's too sunny. It's too beautiful here in Orlando. Sorry, y'all getting hit by snow in Denver. Sorry about that.
You see, I lived here in Florida for a long time, so this weather doesn't put me instantly in a good mood. It just is. I had good days and bad days in these sorts of conditions, right? So it's just like whatever. I can be frustrated. I can be happy. I can be sad. Go put on my game face, as the late Bob Knight used to say. Like that.
Where's your lion face and lemon face? That's all I want to know.
Lion face. Lemon face. You got to play along a little more than that.
I did a little bit.
A little.
Speaking of playing along, you can help us on YouTube. How do you do it, Mace?
You do it by like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid.
We screwed that up.
Ugh.
We're better when it's a split screen. Anyway, we're here.
Our
in
slow
Orlando.
timing is actually pretty good.
It is. It is. Ritz-Carlton. What? JW Marriott. Where are we
Okay,
at?
it's the Ritz-Carlton's over here as we shoot.
Okay. Yes.
The JW
JW 's
Marriott's
right
over
there.
here, and then right behind us is where they're doing all the media stuff. This is where the Sean Payton's going to speak, and then somewhere around the property is where we're going to grab George Payton and Greg Penner here in the next couple of days as well. So they'll have plenty to say.
Yeah. And we got a water park right there. I forgot my R2D2 swim trunks, but hey, I got basketball shorts, so
You're prepared.
we're here for you. We're here for you. Lots of shows coming up, so make sure to do the YouTube things. Help us out. He's Andrew Mason. Follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT is a BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.